اهلا وسهلا بحضراتكم في ذا ال ان دي ترايب. مجتمع ذا ال ان دي ترايب، زي ما حضراتكم عارفين، اعد وانشئ هذا المجتمع تو سبورت زملائنا في الليرنينج اند ديفلوبمنت فيلد، سواء اللي لسه في الجونيور ليفلز او السينيور ليفلز، عشان تو سبورت حضراتكم ان يكون عندنا دايما البيست براكتسز، دايما يكون عندنا ريفرنس في البراكتسز اللي احنا بنعملها في الليرنينج اند ديفلوبمنت. ومن اهم التوبكس اللي احنا حابين ان احنا نعرضها على حضراتكم في شهر جولاي هو how to develop resilient L&D teams. فكرة الريزيلينس دايما بنسمعها، فكرة ان احنا بيحصل لنا سيت باكس كتير جدا، فكرة ان احنا بنتعرض لفيليرز مختلفة، ولكن كون ان احنا يكون عندنا الايموشنال ريزيلينس علشان نقدر نتغلب على المواقف دي، ويكون عندنا الريزيلينس الكافية اللي تخلينا نقدر تريكويل، محتاجين ان احنا نتوقف عندها. لذلك كان لزاما علينا ان احنا يكون عندنا سيشن فيها مع احدى الخبراء في مجالنا، وهي الدكتورة تهاني الدوسماني. اهلا وسهلا بحضرتك يا دكتور.
أهلا وسهلا، حياكم الله جميعا، وشكرا جزيلا لكم على الاستضافة الكريمة وعلى اختيار هذا الموضوع. حقيقة يعني موضوع مهم. مثل ما تفضلت أستاذ أحمد، هو يعني موضوع الريزيلينت، وقد يكون شهر جولاي الشهر المناسب، لأنه أحيانا يكون فترة الصيف فترة توقف، فراح تكون فترة ممتازة للتوقف والتفكير بأفضل الاستراتيجيات اللي يعود فيها الموظفين للعمل بإصرار أكثر وبمرونة وقوة أكثر. شكرا جزيلا لكم، وإذا حابين أستاذ أحمد أن نبدأ.
يعني شكرا لحضرتك يا دكتورة تهاني. وانا لما فكرت ان انا اعرف حضرتك، لقيت ان انا بدأت استشعر القلق. لماذا؟ لانه اخشى ان انا انسى اي من النقاط في مسيرة حضرتك الذاتية، فاجد انه من الافضل انه نتيح لحضرتك المجال لتعريف نفسك، وان حضرتك تقود السيشن، فكلنا اذان صاغية لحضرتك. اتفضلي يا دكتورة دهاني.
شكرا جزيلا، الله يعطيكم العافية، وحقيقة سعيدة جدا باللقاء فيكم اليوم بمجتمع ال L&D. وهو مجتمع حقيقة جدا مهم، لأنه بدون ال Learning and Development في المنظمات ما يعني راح تكون قدرات ومهارات والقيم عند الموظفين لا ليست محدثة، أو ليس فيها الدعم المطلوب للتماشي مع تحديات بيئات العمل. فدوركم جدا مهم، وهذا يعني التجمع أيضا فعال ومهم. وهذه السيشنات اللي دائما تعقد بشكل دوري أيضا نشوف أنها من ناحية العناوين ومن ناحية الحضور ومن ناحية الترتيب، فهو ملتقى يعني جدا احترافي ومهم، خاصة للمجتمع العربي. معكم البروفيسورة تهاني السيماني، وهذا حقيقة مجال يعني شغف كبير قبل لا يكون مجال تخصص وخبرة، اللي هو learning and development، خاصة لما نتكلم عن مجال تعليم الكبار وتدريب الكبار. قبل أن ندخل في موضوع السيشن اليوم، طبعا أنا يعني اسمحوا لي أنه قد أكون أني أنتقل ما بين اللغة العربية والإنجليزية. أنا عديت السلايدات باللغة الإنجليزية، وراح أستخدم اللغة الإنجليزية، ويعني راح أعطي ترجمة بسيطة لبعض المفردات وبعض يعني خلينا نقول العبارات المهمة. ومثل ما تفضلت أستاذ أحمد، راح يكون يعني غالبا بايلينجوال. يعني للتعريف بنفسي بشكل سريع، أنا تهاني تسيماني. أنا أحمل شهادة الدكتوراه من جامعة وايومينغ في مجال الإديوكيشنال تكنولوجي والستراكشنال ديزاين، واللي يعتبر الكور لعمليات الليرنينج اند ديفلوبمنت. عندي خبرة في المجال الأكاديمي في التعلم الرقمي وتطوير المناهج. عندي خبرة عريضة جدا في موضوع مهارات المستقبل والتعلم مدى الحياة ومعايير وبرامج التعليم العالي. خدمت في عدة أماكن ومناصب حكومية في المملكة العربية السعودية، من ضمنها حاليا مدير برامج ومعايير التعليم العالي الثقافي في وزارة الثقافة. سابقا كنت مدير برنامج الإطار الوطني ومهارات المستقبل، إحدى مبادرات رؤية المملكة 2030، والتي كانت تركز على تطوير رأس المال البشري. الحمد لله أنا من ضمن يعني الخبراء اللي حصلوا على تكريمات دولية كثيرة، وعلى جوائز، وعلى بحث علمي متميز في، ومشاركات في عدة مؤتمرات دولية. أيضا حاصلة على CIBD Level 7 و CBTD، ومجموعة من الشهادات الاحترافية الأخرى في مجال القيادة وفي مجال قيادة التعليم الإلكتروني. أيضا حاصلة على زمالة جامعة كامبريدج بالتعاون مع HB في مجال التحول الرقمي، وأيضا حاصلة على دبلوم عالي من MIT في مجال قيادة التحول الرقمي. مثل ما ذكرت أنا يعني شاركت في مؤتمرات كثيرة، و في مجلات علمية كثيرة حول موضوع الليرنينج اند ديفلوبمنت، وهذا مثل ما قلت في بداية اللقاء هو شغف قبل لا يكون يعني خبرة. حقيقة هذا المجال جدا مهم وواعد، خصوصا للدور المهم والمحوري اللي يقوم في فرق L&D في المنظمات. استسمحكم اني ابدا الان بموضوع لقائنا اليوم، اللي هو مثل ما تفضل زميلي الاستاذ احمد حول موضوع الريزيلينت L&D تيمز في الوقت الصعب اللي نعيشه الان، وفي ظل التحديات وظل تغير الاتجاهات باستمرار. قد يعني أنا بشوف أنه يمكن أستطيع أني أكمل باللغة العربية، فراح أكمل باللغة العربية، بما أنه مثل ما تفضلت الجمهور الحاضر معنا اليوم ومشرفنا هو يعني أغلبه من متحدثين العرب. فاليوم إن شاء الله رح يعني ناخذ بشكل سريع مجموعة التحديات اللي يواجهها فرق L&D أو Learning and Development في المنظمات في وقتنا الراهن. أيضا بعض الاستراتيجيات للتعامل مع هذه التحديات اللي في بيئات العمل، وكيف نطور ونبني الريزيلينس. وفي يعني قبل نهاية هذا اللقاء إن شاء الله راح يكون في يعني discussions حول هذا الموضوع، و Q&A مع حضورنا الكريم. طيب مثل ما قلنا يعني باك اند فورث في موضوع اللغة الإنجليزية، فيعني why resilience matters. طبعا الموضوع يعني جدا مهم في why it's important، لماذا موضوع الريزيلينس مهم اليوم. مثل ما تعرفون احنا we are يعني living through a time of constant transformation، تحولات كثيرة واتجاهات كثيرة. So L&D professionals are expected to deliver very fast in a very flexible way, and embed tech in the learning and development processes while aligning with the business goals. We are having lots of disruptions, the digital disruption, the hybrid work environments. Also, we are having the economic pressures. The evolving learner expectations have been pushed by many L&D teams to their limits. So one of the statistics that caught my attention, that's according to the LinkedIn 2024 report, 70% of the L&D professionals say their teams has been to completely rethink their approach in the last year alone. So just in 1 year, they have to rethink all processes and all policies. Sorry, do you have sorry, do you have any comments or are we going good, أستاذ أحمد؟
لا أنا تمام. أنا
تمام.
تمام، شكرا لحضرتك يا دكتورة تهاني.
شكرا. فيعني with all these matters, with all trends, and in the midst of all these disruptions, so all this means change. So when we think about change, we think about the resilience, and maybe we need to stop a little bit and think about the resilience. So what does the resilience mean? So it is our ability to endure and adapt and thrive. And this is what separates, you know, the surviving teams from the thriving ones. So it's not just about coping, it is about sustaining performance and doing well and keeping our well-being over time. So it is a very important issue that we need to really think about in this ever-changing environments. So I'm thinking here for this session about some important pillars that we need to think about in terms of the building the resilience teams of L&D. So first of all, I'm thinking about the upskilling of L&D. So the L&D teams need to be to have the upskilling and sometimes reskilling of certain skills that they need to acquire or need to improve in order to thrive or survive in these environments. So I'm thinking about the digital literacy. As you know, digital literacy is very important. You know, the importance of making data-driven decisions in the learning strategies are increasingly becoming very, very important. So the first foundation of resilience is capability of the L&D teams, that they must constantly sharpen their tools and broaden their expertise in order to match the requirements of the future. So speaking about the digital literacy, it is very, very important skill that, as I mentioned, it will help in supporting the L&D teams to make informed decisions and start with the ability to collect, analyze and interpret learning data and work with the dashboards and the metrics of the LMS platforms, dealing with the feedback tools and the impact assessments. And we are witnessing every day the growth of let's say we are always nowadays we are bombarded with lots of AI tools and applications. So this is very, very important skill that they need to acquire in order to be able to deal with future requirements. The other upskilling thing that I'm thinking about is the digital tools. So here we need to equip the L&D teams with the digital tools that they need. So to be fluent in technology, like the AI-assisted design, digital authoring tools, the adaptive learning platforms, and the virtual facilitations of the sessions. So all these are very, very important tools that they need to deal with. Comes with the upskilling requirements in the agile practices. So the agile methodologies in course development and program rollouts, you know, to be able to deal with the iterative design, the rapid testing, the stakeholder feedback loops are very important. So being agile and being able to deal with the agile practices will help L&D teams to avoid the burnout and, you know, by replacing, replacing the ambition to be perfectionist or perfectionism with the continuous progress. So please, let's think about this together, and let me know what you think in the chat. What new tools or tech tools that your L&D teams adopted this year? And how do you think this tool changed your work? Please share with us so we can exchange ideas about, you know, the digital literacy tools that is making a difference in your day-to-day task for L&D processes. The second pillar that I believe is very, very important is to build the emotional resilience. So the technical skills alone are not enough. We previously discussed some of the digital tools, and you know the internet is full of many digital tools that we can access and learn very fast and adopt in and implement in our environments. But what comes before that or comes with that is the importance of building emotional resilience. So the technical skills, as I mentioned, alone are not enough. The soft skills are very important. It is very critical for resilience, building resilient L&D teams. So the emotional resilience is what helps us lead during change, during the uncertainty, to manage stress and support others effectively. So the emotional intelligence, or what is called or shortened for EQ, it allows us to communicate with empathy, to stay calm under pressure, and build trust across teams. So the EQ, or emotional resilience, is a skill that can be developed, just the data analysis or facilitation. So there are lots of techniques, lots of online sessions on how to enhance the emotional resilience. So among the most important or the key techniques for emotional resilience, here comes the mindfulness that promotes the focus, reduce the anxiety, and improves the decision making. Even taking a short breath exercise at the start of a meeting or after long days, it can change the team dynamics. Among the techniques as well is the peer support. So the regular peer check-ins, the mentorship programs, the coaching, or building resilient circles can also reduce the isolation and boost the morale. Also among the techniques is the reflective practice. So reflective practice helps in building structured time for personal or group reflections after major projects, and it helps all of us to learn from both the failure and the success. Let me share a case study, a real-world case study for building emotional resilience among teams, and this is from the IBM's Learning and Development Division. So looking at this case study, there's lots of lessons learned. And let me share this quick example. So during the pandemic, the IBM Global L&D team was under a huge pressure to move all training programs online, which is, among the many disruptions that happened to the world during the pandemic. So moving all the training programs online while supporting employees to navigate crisis and uncertainty. So that was a huge challenge for the Learning and Development Division. So rather than focusing only on tools or the digital literacy just by itself, the IBM team invested in its people, and this is the very important let's say the most important factor in the whole experience, which is the people, and investing in the human capabilities and the human values and their resilience. So they introduced certain programs for the emotional resilience and how to promote the emotional resilience. So these programs were like, for example, the mindfulness programs. They launched the digital peer support groups, and they also built time and specified time for reflections into the team workflows. So they focused a lot on the human experience, and they focused on the emotional resilience and building it across all these teams. So as a result, for this, let's say, a unique or a best practice that IBM led during the pandemic, the burnout symptoms that were measured dropped in a significant way. The team morale and the agility improved. And this gives us lots of lessons that this proves that when we prioritize the emotional resilience, we don't just support the well-being, we enhance the performance and the innovation as well. So I really, I'm thinking about this, the case, it's very important that makes us rethink some of our process. Sometimes we focus on the tools, on the processes, but we forgot the well-being matters and the emotional resilience. So IBM invested in the peer circles and the mindfulness during the pandemic. And according to the statistics, this led to a 23 drop in burnout and increased the collaboration, and proves that the well-being and performance go hand in hand. So let me move now to the third pillar, which is the adaptability to change. So with the resilience comes the adaptability and the readiness to for change and the transformation, and being adaptable. So change is not a phase, it's a constant. So they always say the only constant thing in life is change. So this, for L&D teams, they need to adopt a growth mindset where yeah, so a growth mindset where they should think about the failure, about failure as a feedback, and the curiosity that comes after that should drive the development. So always, as it's all been said, that failure is one of the most important teaching lessons for us. So one of the tools and practices is to improve the adaptability to change is the change readiness assessment that will help in diagnose team flexibility. Also, the prototyping lets teams test learning experiences before scaling. So this is a very important factor for increasing the success rates and getting the lessons learned from this piloting and prototyping before going into large scales and large scale applications. Also, the quick and after action reviews are very important to help in normalize the reflection and learning from the outcomes. So maybe this led me to think, and I would like to share with you, let's think together. When was the last time your team paused to reflect on what you could do differently, not just to do it faster? So these moments of reflection with the team to think about what can be done in a different way, more innovative, more, let's say, more productivity in changing some of our processes, and not just move faster with the, let's say, the deadlines or schedules. So these are very important skills to adopt. So now we move to the pillar number 4, which is team structures that foster innovation. So team structures that foster innovation can either fuel or limit resilience. So to foster innovation, we must design L&D teams that encourage autonomy, the psychological safety, and collaboration. So the cross-functional teams always bring diverse perspectives. The flat hierarchies are very important in promoting the ownership and facilitating faster decision-making. Also, the psychological safety, to build this safety, and which means people can speak up, they can fail in non-threatening environment, and learning without fear of judgment it's very important to build the resilience teams and help them to thrive and succeed in this, sometimes hard times during, times of uncertainty or times of fast change. So one of the examples is Google research on high-performing teams who found that psychological safety was the #1 indicator for success. So this is a very important factor that we shouldn't underestimate. in order to be able to support the L&D teams. So this also makes me think, and let's think all together, think out loud, how can we create that culture in our L&D departments, where, you know, an environment of safety and ability to speak up and ability to also to fail. So this is also very important key factor that we need to develop and adopt in the learning and development environments. So after speaking about some critical and important factors or pillars of building resilient L&D teams, it comes now to measuring the resilience in L&D teams. So measuring and testing, this is a very important process and a very important practice to adopt. So to improve resilience, we must measure it, because it's always said what you can't measure, you can't improve. So this is very important. So we need to look at both the individual and the team level indicators. So let's look, for example, on some KPIs to track, and maybe you can add more to these KPIs, and we can learn from each other today. If you can share with us through the chat, what other indicators that we can measure for the measuring the resilience and the L&D teams. So maybe we can, one of the KPIs is the engagement. Engagement is very important. So maybe we can adopt the engagement scores from, for example, pulse surveys. We can distribute some surveys to measure and to assess the student, the L&D team's engagement. Also, the response time to change requests or new rollouts. These are very important also factors. Also the program effectiveness in terms of the learner outcomes and alignment with the business goals. Among the tools that will help us in tracking the KPIs is the 360-degree feedback, the resilience assessments. There are some very famous 360-degree feedbacks, like, for example, the RS14, the brief resilience scale. So there is a lot on the internet to measure the team resilience. Also, we can utilize and benefit from the analytics platforms and look at the dashboards to see the level of engagements. So tracking these and over time helps us make evidence-based improvements. So after discussing some of these strategies for measuring the resilience in the L&D teams, maybe we can go to some practical steps that will help us, and some recommendations. So these tips and recommendations are some of the low cost, but they are at the same time have high impact practices. So for example, the regular upskilling sessions, holding bi-weekly upskilling sprints on emerging tools. It can be very beneficial and it will help the teams to be very productive. Also, building or encouraging safe to fail pilots or experiments with the time, building, let's say, the sandboxes for experiments with the team will be also very beneficial. Also creating internal learning communities for sharing insights, and the community that we are convening today is one of them. Is very important to share some of the insights and recommendations and exchange ideas in order how to support the L&D teams to thrive in the working environments. Also, some of the very helpful strategies is to integrate the journaling or debriefing time into the team rituals in their everyday practices. So this will help in minimizing stress, and also help them think about their practices and pause for a little bit to have some reflections in the everyday practices. So try one of these in the next month, and you can observe how your teams will respond. The next slide, which is the what I plan with the Ustad Muhammad and Ustad Ahmed about some of the let's say it's an interactive segment with the attendees. So if you can please share which areas does your L&D team struggle with most? Is it the digital tools, or the emotional resilience, or the team innovation, or the data literacy? So what do you think is the most that your teams struggle with and they need certain programs or support in these areas?
طيب هنديكم يا جماعة 10 more seconds to select the answers. طيب خلينا نقل البول ونشوف الريزلتس. حد حابب يختار حاجة تانية؟ طيب let's see the results. واضح يا دكتورة تهاني ان تقريبا almost يعني 3 people selected the digital tools, 2 people selected emotional resilience, و 2 people selected data literacy. team innovation محدش اختارها خالص.
Which is great, and yeah, which is great. Maybe since the innovation is based on ideas and creativity, maybe there is no struggle or no areas of challenge for that the audience maybe didn't experience before. But maybe I'll just talk a little bit about each one of these areas. So let's say the digital tools. So many teams struggle with selecting maybe and integrating the right tools, especially with the constant tech evolution. Every day we are having new tools and new technologies. So maybe the common gaps, I can really relate to what's been shared. Maybe this is a huge gap or area for development, which is a common gap that includes the lack of adoption, or maybe let's say sometimes low digital confidence, because there's sometimes low confidence on the technology in general, or maybe sometimes it's the over reliance or on certain systems. So what I highly recommend for that is to start small. For example, choosing one technology or one digital tool, one or two or three, and then pilot one or two high impact tools before scaling it up. So this is one of the suggestions that I highly recommend. Also, as I mentioned at the beginning of this session, is to invest in the upskilling. So to offer maybe the micro learning technique is very effective. So on tools like the LMS platforms and the collaboration apps. So like, for example, the Zoom or the Microsoft Teams, or even the AI-enabled content. So these are important to work on upskilling and reskilling the teams. Also, maybe you can reward the champions and encourage the digital fluency and encourage peer-led tutorials or digital ambassadors in your organization. So this is very important. The second area that we included in this poll is the emotional resilience. So the emotional fatigue and burnout are rising. We can't deny that. So especially in a fast-paced environments or hybrid work cultures. So L&D can help by embedding psychological safety programs and the empathy talks into everyday learning. What I highly recommend is to promote reflective practice, as I mentioned, using journaling, coaching circles, or sometimes the mindfulness sessions. Also embedding the resilience training, the programs on stress management, mindset, let's say, shifts, encouraging the growth mindset, and also encouraging the self-regulation skills. Also, one of the great strategies for emotional resilience is to model at a leadership level. For example, encouraging managers to share personal coping strategies will be also very effective. The team innovation, the point, innovation isn't just about creativity. So it's about collaboration, risk-taking, and experimentation. So many teams lack structured ways to test ideas or challenge the status quo. And one of the suggestions and recommendations is to create innovation labs or sprint weeks, short-term, let's say, cross-functional projects with real-world impact. Also, maybe it's a good strategy is to gamify problem solving using some design thinking workshops, and it's been very, very effective from previous experience. Also, hackathons or ideation platforms are very effective in enhancing, or let's say sparkling the team innovation. Also, one of the strategies is to reward the teams, curiosity. So to recognize experimentation and reward it. Also, if it doesn't lead to immediate success, it doesn't matter. At least as far as it's leading to new ideas, to experimenting and trying new things out. The last point is the data literacy, which is very important as well, of the one of the areas that maybe L&D teams struggle with. So because of maybe the L&D is increasingly expected to show impact, so many teams lack the confidence in data collection and interpretation of this data. So it's not just about the dashboards. It's more than that. It's about asking the right questions and telling compelling stories with data. So this is the core of the data literacy. So again, I believe upskilling in basics, offering micro learning sessions, bite-sized learning on metrics, learning analytics. For example, storytelling with data is very important. Also using real data, for example, working with existing L&D data that includes, for example, metrics or data on engagement, completion rates, to build comfort is very important. So also to partner with other departments like the HR and co-build in order to maybe the strategy departments is to work with other teams, as I mentioned, the HR or IT or whatever, to co-build some data fluency skills for the teams. So yeah, thanks for participating in this poll. I really learned new things today. Thanks for your collaboration and for sharing your ideas. Some of the resources and further readings that I highly recommend for building the resilient teams, L&D teams, is the book by Susan David, which is the Emotional Agility. So how to get unstuck, embrace change, and thrive in work and life. This is a resource that I highly recommend. One of also the resources that I recommend is the Work Life TED podcast by Adam Grant. Also, another podcast really interesting is Leading Learning podcasts. Also, there's certain models that will be beneficial, such as the Learning Agility Index, that includes the assessment and reflection, the change management, the feedback integration, the experimentation, knowledge application, and it goes into the circle of change management. So the Learning Agility Index is very important to read more about it and implement it in the for the L&D teams. Also, the 70-20-10 learning model which shows the importance of other resources of learning other than the formal, which says that learning from the formal learning is just 10%, learning from others is 20%, and learning from experience is 70%. So we need to always highlight this for our teams in order to be always open for the to acquire knowledge and learning from the real life experiences. Also, there's we have the Kirkpatrick evaluation model, which is very important. That has the 4 different levels. That starts with the reaction and learning and behavior and results. So the Kirkpatrick evaluation model is another great resource to start with for evaluating the teams and what they have learned, what they have applied. Maybe we now reached the end of this session. I would like to thank you so much for attending the session, and I really enjoyed meeting with you today. And also I was very happy to know that there is an L&D active community that is having periodical sessions every month. So thank you so much for all your efforts and what you are doing voluntarily in order to keep this community flourishing and learning from each other. Thank you so much to the facilitators, Mr. Mahmoud and Mamdouh and Ahmed. And maybe we can use the couple minutes that we have to share some ideas or some Q&As